It was an eventful opening weekend of the EPL with plenty of goals, VAR errors, and some major transfer sagas along the way. We have another great weekend with Tottenham hosting Manchester United and a top four clash when Manchester City hosts high-flying Newcastle. Welcome back to the Plus Money Podcast, the best soccer betting podcast in 15 minutes or less. I'm Andrew Passaro. He's Ani Sridhar. It's good to be back. Nice, solid weekend. Make sure you're following us at the Plus Money Pod, at Andrew Passaro, at Ani323. We've also got the Women's World Cup final, Leagues Cup final this weekend. There's so much football on, soccer, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be betting on all of it. But Ani, I think you've got some action for Friday afternoon, so why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I mean, first we said Chelsea-Liverpool 0-0, right, last weekend. We should have just bet draw. That's 7 straight
Yeah, we
for
really
the two
should have.
squads. That was the safe bet there. But yeah, so Nottingham Forest against Sheffield United. I'm actually taking Forest money line minus 115. They are coming off a loss to Arsenal, but didn't look as half bad as I really thought they would. For a lot of that first half, they looked like the better team against Arsenal. Sheffield really have zero attacking prowess whatsoever. I think they might finish the end of the season with the least amount of goals. Even Luton Town looked better offensively than Sheffield. So give me Forest to take this one, grab the 3 points, and minus 115.
All right, we'll jump to Saturday, where we've got a really, really fun slate from the whole day. There's games at 10, 12:30, and 3. No 7 a.m. game, which I love. So I'm going to start in that 10 a.m. slate with Fulham-Brentford, and I'm going to take Brentford plus 160 money line. Look, I know a lot of people are down on Brentford right now with no Ivan Toney, but look what they did against Tottenham. 2 goals in the first half. We get a first half over. They look better than I expected, and I understand this Tottenham team isn't one that I have huge expectations for, but I think Fulham are going to struggle, which is why I think that Brentford can get something in this London derby. I also kind of like the over 3.5 at plus 250. Their last 3 head-to-head matches have all ended with 5 goals, so the fact that plus 250 is out there for at least 4. Yeah, it's a little bit of a reach, so maybe this is a sprinkle. I do like Brentford team total over 1.5 at plus 146. Again, I think Brentford can score a few goals, get a win here. And I also kind of think the first half over 1.5 plus 192 is worth a sprinkle as well. I'm seeing a lot of goals in that one. Fulham gave up a ton of expected goals to Everton in that game that they got a win in last weekend. And if Brentford can just convert their chances, I think we're going to have a ton of goals in that one.
Yeah, Mitrovic didn't draw the start like we expected last weekend for Fulham. Still going to be without Andreas Pereira. It looks like arguably their best player. I also have Brentford tie no bet minus 116 going right back to the well. We pushed that last weekend when they drew with Tottenham. In 6 games without Ivan Toney, Brian Mbeumo and Johan Wissa are combined for 11 goals and 3 assists. So they don't really skip a beat without him, with those two guys starting up top for that squad. So I like that bet. I'll move on to another 10 o'clock game here, Liverpool against Bournemouth. Taking the over 3.5, baby. I think Liverpool are going to come out swinging. The odds for anytime goal scorer are not great at all, actually. I looked at it for Salah. It's like minus 135. I think he scores twice. I think he's pissed he got subbed off in the 71st minute. You could see the frustration on his face. He was like tearing his arm wrap off, throwing it on the field, didn't make any eye contact with Jurgen Klopp. He's pissed he didn't get that opening game goal, which he has countlessly done here in the Premier League. So Liverpool, Bournemouth, over 3.5 at minus 108.
Yeah, I looked long and hard for odds for that one because I know that of the 10 a.m. games, that will be the one that I watch every single second of. And I'm sure I'll find something and I'll make some kind of parlay, but the odds are crazy juiced. People forget this is the game that Liverpool piped Bournemouth 9-0 last year. So it should be a fun one. Liverpool did sign a defensive midfielder, but I don't expect him to start. He's going to be more,
which makes me like the
James,
over even more.
Yeah, he's going to be more of a James
Bournemouth
Milner come in and close the game out type of player than the starter. And I'm okay with the depth signing. So let's jump to Wolves taking on Brighton. Brighton have won 3 straight against Wolves, including a 6-0 win at home last year, a 3-2 win away, and then going back to 2 seasons ago, a 3-0 win away. So this one is at Wolves. Brighton and over 1.5 in the match is at plus 110, and Brighton team total over 1.5 and 27 or more match shots is plus 155 if you parlay those two together. So that's what I'm sticking with for there. Brighton were excellent, absolutely hammered Luton Town, took advantage of their chances, created a bunch of chances. I think this one, and you know what? Shout out to Wolves. They got absolutely robbed on Monday night. They should have gotten a late penalty. They played a lot better than expected against Manchester United. Let's see how they do against Brighton. I expect big things for this Brighton team, and I do expect Wolves to get relegated, but the way they played on Monday, maybe that doesn't happen. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you said. We both have Wolves to get relegated this season, but they looked a lot better than I really thought they would, especially in that midfield. Matthias Cunha is a real deal. That dude's a stud, and they got robbed. They should have had a penalty against Onana there. They also had a lot of good opportunities. There was a couple of good saves, and then a couple they just hit straight at the goalie. If there was a little bit of finesse there, man, I think Wolves win that like 2-1 or 3-1. So I'm taking the over 3.5 at plus 188 in this contest. It's great juice for the over, but I could see this at 2. Honestly, Wolves could get a draw here 2-2, but I think more likely this is like a 3-1, 3-2 Brighton win, because Brighton, they did concede over the weekend, and defensively they're going to struggle this year against the top dogs, and but attacking wise they're going to be relentless. So I do like the over.
Yeah, I feel like Brighton team total over 1.5 is going to be a weekly lock on this podcast. We got two massive games that remain on Saturday. Tottenham, Manchester United in London, Manchester City, Newcastle in Manchester. Let's start with the game in London as Spurs take on Man United. Going back to the well I was on last year with Man United games with corners. They had 15 in their matchup against Wolves on Monday night. Over 11.5 is plus 142. That's a lot of corners, but I'm going to ride with it. I like over 3.5 goals plus 146. Curious to see what happens with Romero. He came out with a concussion. I think that means he has to be out for a week. I don't remember what the EPL rules are for concussions, so keep an eye on that one. But him not being back there is a big test for Tottenham. And regardless, I think that they're going to be giving up a lot of goals this year, and I think they're going to score a lot of goals. So I'm going to ride the over there, 3.5 at plus 146. And I also like the first half over 1.5 at plus 136. So that's where I'm at for Spurs Man United.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Tottenham under the new manager look very more aggressive offensively. They're going to be pushing the ball forward a lot this season, and United looked very vulnerable against Wolves. Their defense is not that strong as we might have maybe expected better from them. So, I mean, ding, ding, ding. Here's our first plus money pots on the same page lock of the year. I got 2 bets written down: over 11.5 corners at plus 142, and the over 3.5 at plus 146. So this is we're on the exact same page with this, and I might even ladder the corners over 12.5, to be honest. I think that's probably like my plus 230. I don't know the exact number there, but might not hurt putting maybe 0.25 units on that.
All right, Manchester City taking on Newcastle. I'm so excited for this game. Coming off this past weekend, I think these are two of the teams that looked absolutely the best from opening weekend matchups. I want to point out a couple things about Man City here before we get started on the analysis. Kevin De Bruyne is going to be out for a few months with an injury, and Manchester City won the UEFA Super Cup in the midweek against Sevilla, going to penalties. Newcastle having the week off. This one is in Manchester. I have 4 plays I like from this. I'm going to start. I think the number is too good to not take Newcastle double chance plus 115. I think that number is disrespectful for Newcastle to potentially get a win here, especially with the way that City just have played a whole extra game. Newcastle come in rested, coming off of scoring 5 goals. I'm not saying that they could beat Manchester City, but to have the option of a win or a draw at plus 115, I'm going to take that. I do think the over 3.5, I think we could have like a fun classic EPL matchup here in this 3 o'clock window. So I love the over 3.5 plus 158. Newcastle team total. So the Newcastle team totals to score 2 is plus 240. Coming off a team that scored 5, I'm gonna throw something on that. And then a parlay like of both teams to score over 2.5 and 24 or more match shots is plus 149. I just want a classic game. That's what I want. I'm okay with City winning this one. I don't care. I mean, yes, I obviously want the Newcastle double chance bet to hit. But I want a fun one here. And I will say this. If Newcastle not only play well and get some kind of positive result, I think I'll be running to the window to put in a Newcastle to win the league ticket, especially after the injury news for Arsenal. That's more injury news for Arsenal with Jurrien Timber going down for quite a while here with another injury.
I mean, I think the biggest thing with Newcastle is how are they going to look this year after getting into Champions League play? That's something they didn't have last year. Like, how is this depth going to come into play? Is fatigue going to take its toll? I will say Tonali looked amazing in his EPL debut. Definitely a guy to watch. We're going to see Isak and Callum Wilson get rotated throughout the year. The biggest, you talked about City playing in the midweek. The biggest thing there is all the starters played 90 minutes. It wasn't like they started and came off at 60, 62. They all played. So I don't know if Pep's going to rotate this team, which he's known to do, but that's why I actually lean towards the under. Once again, we're on the opposite sides of a Newcastle game. You were completely right against Villa. I was so off, but I leaned the under 2.5 at plus 110. Just because I think Pep's game, I think his game style might be more defensive than anything just because of the personnel he has. So I think he's going to try to restrict Newcastle here. The odds aren't great, but minus 110 is Haaland to score anytime. He scored in both fixtures against Newcastle last season. So if you're going to follow that trend, there's one for you right there.
All right. I've got a couple quick ones from Sunday, and then I'll give you a Leagues Cup play as I'm wearing my Messi Inter Miami jersey right now. If you're watching on the YouTube, by the way, go subscribe and 5 stars and everything on all the podcast places. Aston Villa taking on Everton. Villa and over 1.5 is plus 100, and both teams to score and over 2.5 is plus 130. Everton unlucky not to get a goal in that game against Fulham over the weekend. And I will say Villa unlucky just to have a major injury happen in the middle of that one along that back line. You have Pau Torres another full week of practice. I expect Villa to beat Everton. That shouldn't really be an issue for them, but they've got to they got to pick themselves up off the mat after that rough one on Saturday.
Yeah, I've only got two plays from the same game, and that's Chelsea, West Ham, a little London derby there. I've got Chelsea money line minus 105. This is going to be Poch's coming out party in the Prem. The midfield actually looked pretty decent against Liverpool. Enzo Fernandez had himself a pretty good game. The defense is going to be the biggest question mark. Recent news out of Chelsea camp, Reece James once again aggravating that hamstring. Most likely going to be out several weeks. Let's see what the 20-year-old Malo Gusto can do now into that right back role. Nico Jackson did look good, though. And I'm going to sprinkle it on the over 2.5 in that game, too, at minus 108. Jared Bowen looks to be playing a lot more forward for West Ham this season, which is huge with that since they lost Scamacca, and Antonio looks to be on the outs there at West Ham wanting a move. So that's my card for the weekend.
All right, I've got a couple for Nashville versus Inter Miami. I've been betting on every single one of these Miami games. Got to get my money's worth after I paid the $40 to watch the rest of the MLS package for the rest of the season so I could watch Messi every week. The over 3.5 is plus 132. That is hit in every single matchup that he has started. So that one continue. Got to keep riding that one. There's no odds on this one, but Nashville over 4.5 corners. It's hit in 4 out of their last 5 games, and Miami has given up 5 or more corners in 4 of the last 6 matches. So that's one I've been riding. It's pretty much been at plus odds every single time. Hit very comfortably in their matchup against Philly in the semifinals. Sam Surridge came into Nashville. It was a recent signing, has 3 goals in 3 games for Nashville as they make their way to the Leagues Cup final. So a Surridge and Messi anytime goal scorer parlay is plus 357. Let's ride the hot boots. and he's plus 210 all on his own. So I'll ride that one. As we head to this final, I think we are going to see Messi lift silverware with Miami. If you guys were following on Twitter, you know that I told you to put in a ticket at plus 600. So riding with Miami on Saturday night, 9:00. And I think both of us have a ticket in on England to win the Women's World Cup. So
I actually had 3 futures to win the Women's World Cup: Spain, Sweden, and Australia. 3 out of the 4 made the semis. So I'm just gonna bet a little bit on England to lift the cup. I think it's at minus 106. Spain's actually favored in this to do a little hedging, but I'm already positive, baby. Women's World Cup coming in profitable.
There we go. All right. Well, that will wrap it up from us. We will be back next week as we get ready for another weekend in the Premier League. And make sure you're following along on Twitter and Instagram this week. We'll probably have something for Arsenal as they take on Crystal Palace on Monday Night Football. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Follow us at The Plus Money Pod, at Andrew Passaro, at Ani 323, and stay positive.